Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Charleston, and welcome you guys to another episode of the Dreamerspro Show, where we cover everything from sports, hot topics, classic debates, entertainment, and where we give you guys a fresh perspective on things and how we see them. And in today's episode, the topic is, can the Miami Heat steal Kawhi Leonard from the Clippers? So that's the topic I want to get into in today's video. But before we get into that, I want you guys to please make sure you go ahead and hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and hit the notification bell to be notified whenever we drop our content. Also, make sure you go ahead and check out Dreamerspro Max, an online sports community, place where you can go and start basketball discussions, chat live during games, and so many other cool things. If you guys are interested in that, be sure to check that out. We have that linked in the description below. And also make sure you go ahead and click the join button to join the channel to receive loyalty badges from us. So anyway, real quick. So this was supposed to be my off day. Had no intention of making content today. I was just supposed to relax, but then obviously I got inspired and I was like, okay, let me see what I can put together today. So I said, Marco, man, let's do it today. So this is what I got. This is what I got for you guys today. So I've been scouring the internet, and I've been hearing some of the things that have been said out there. And one of the things that's being thrown around is this possibility of Kawhi Leonard possibly going to go sign with the Heat or the Dallas Mavericks. So I said, okay, given the fact that this is kind of like the unofficial offseason, I know we do still have the NBA Finals pending, but I think a lot of people are disappointed that their teams are not there. Now, of course, it's going to be the Phoenix Suns and most likely the Milwaukee Bucks, but I think some people have already checked out, to be quite honest with you. So I say, hey, why not get into this right now? Because I know it's something that's kind of circulating out there. And let me just kind of touch on it today. So one of the biggest whispers pretty much all season long was the possibility of Kawhi Leonard possibly going to go sign with the Miami Heat. Right? Where did all of this come from? This came from the fact that after the Clippers kind of lost in the Orlando bubble, they were like, maybe Kawhi might go sign with them, with the Miami Heat the following season. I think given the fact that he only had a 2-year contract with the Clippers. Now, one of the reasons people felt that way is because before Kawhi Leonard joined the Clippers, he went on a recruitment kind of, let's say, journey. And one of the players he recruited was Jimmy Butler. I think the first player he recruited was Kevin Durant, Jimmy Butler, then Paul George. But it was always known that Paul George was the last guy he recruited, and he wanted Jimmy Butler before Paul George. At least those are what the reports were. So it only made sense that, listen, Kawhi Leonard has been with the Clippers now for 2 years. This season, obviously, they didn't make it to the championship given circumstances such as injuries. So they were like, well, he didn't get what he desired in those 2 years. So why not sign with the Miami Heat? And I know a lot of people kind of feel like this could be a potential possibility for Kawhi Leonard possibly going to go sign with the Miami Heat, this off season. But today, I want to break down the idea. And let me just say this. This is a very technical thing, right? Because today we're going to get into contracts and all of these different things. And it's something that you could literally, we could spend an hour breaking down this video. So we're not going to do that. Obviously, I'm going to make it a kind of a superficial kind of analysis. That's number one. Number two, I want you guys to bear in mind that I'm not a lawyer. I'm not an NBA lawyer, sports lawyer. A lot of these things here that are in these contracts are really meant for lawyers and people that really understand these things at a deep level. So I'm going to give you kind of a superficial analysis because I'm not a lawyer and I'm just kind of getting into this thing, for myself here. So first of all, let's talk about some of the things that are actually in play. Okay, let's talk about, I was going through the CBA. That's a collective, the collective bargaining agreement. And listen, one of the as we all know, Kawhi Leonard is a max player. Right? He's a max player, so he's entitled to a max contract. Now, I'm going to give you guys a rough summary, according to the CBA, of what a max contract is, a maximum player salary, right? It's a maximum amount of money a player can make in a single season. A player's maximum salary depends on a number of factors, like his years of service in the league and the type of contract he is eligible to sign. The maximum amount applies to the first season covered by his contract, renegotiation, extension. After that first season, next seasons are governed by 8% and 5 annual % salary increase. Players can receive the supermax salary if they meet certain performance-based criteria, which is like making all multiple NBA teams, Defensive Player of the Year, MVP. And then you have general max rule exceptions for like 6 years or less, 7 to 9 years, depending on the player's 7 to 9 years of experience. A player that has completed at least 7 years or more than 9 years of service can be paid a greater of, listen to this, 30% of the salary cap of the particular team that he's going to be with. So this is just kind of a rough summary of what a maximum contract, a supermax contract is. Then you have to look at what is a player option, because remember, Kawhi Leonard has a player option on his contract, and I'm going to give you guys a quick summary of what that is. A player option grants the player the power to decide whether to stay for another year or become an unrestricted free agent. Keep that in mind, right? So Kawhi Leonard can decide, you know what, I'm going to sign for an additional year, or I can become an unrestricted free agent and then renegotiate an entire new contract with that team. Now, here's something worth keeping in mind. Kawhi Leonard on his deal has a $36 million player option. So if you go to the Clippers, let me say team page or whatever it is, and you want to look at their salaries, if you look at Kawhi Leonard, you'll see next to his name player option. That's the player option that he has for $36 million. So essentially what that means is he can pick up that option for 1 year and get paid $36 million and then come back and negotiate a new contract. It's also important to bear in mind that Kawhi Leonard got paid less than $36 million last year. So this is obviously something that wasn't renegotiated. Now, Kawhi Leonard already said he's going to decline the player option, meaning he's going to become an unrestricted free agent, which means that he's looking to sign a multiple year deal. That's essentially what he's looking to do. Remember, he just turned 30 years old, so he's going to want some long-term security. So these are some of the things that we need to bear in mind. And I'm kind of giving you guys a rough overview of how these contracts kind of work. Now, obviously, it's much more technical than what I'm explaining in these videos here. So that's kind of one aspect of what's happening here in the background. Now, let's look at the other aspects as far as the team. And also bear in mind, Kawhi Leonard has played for 9 years in the NBA. So let's look at the teams as far as their salaries and their salary caps and all of these different things. As I said before, Kawhi Leonard, I think, earned $34 million last year with the Clippers, and I think Paul George earned $35 million. But Paul George has a future guarantee of $214 million. Remember, he signed that contract extension with the Clippers moving forward. He said that he wanted to show that he's here for the long term. So just keep this in mind. Paul George is going to be there for the long term. Kawhi Leonard, his future cash is $36 million, which is the $36 million I just mentioned to you, the player option that he has. That's if he decides to not become an unrestricted free agent and just pick up the player option, sign for 1 more year, and then try to renegotiate another contract. But he's already said he's going to decline the player option and then test the waters. Now, you have Marcus Morris Sr. who's going to be paid $14 million, and so on and so forth. The most important number to pay attention to here, the most important figure, to pay attention to in all of this, the only one that really matters in all of this, apart from the salaries that the players are going to have, because remember, some players have expiring contracts and all of this, is the current cap space. Okay, the current cap space. As we speak, the Clippers currently have $28 million in cap space, meaning they have that amount of money to play with. Now, remember, Kawhi Leonard has a $36 million player option. And there's some players that have some expiring contracts with the Clippers, like who? Serge Ibaka, Terrence Mann, Kawhi Leonard, Yogi Ferrell, I think Ivica Zubac, and these guys. And I think, these are the guys that currently have an expiring contract with the Clippers. So some of these guys are going to have to go. And I think Reggie Jackson is up for, Reggie Jackson is also up for renegotiation. So they're not going to be able to bring everybody back if they're going to bring Kawhi Leonard back. That's one thing to bear in mind. So if we look at the Miami Heat, right, the thing that we got to pay attention to with the Miami Heat, we got to look at their cap space, because ultimately this is what we're talking about here. I'm not going to get into the other things. The Miami Heat currently have cap space of, currently have $23 million to spend, right? And obviously they have some moving parts. So the Miami Heat are definitely in play if we're talking about them possibly signing Kawhi Leonard. That's definitely a possibility, because they definitely have the cap space to do so. So I wanted to kind of break that down and explain why these teams are even in play, because some teams don't have the cap space, some teams do have the cap space. So I've kind of explained that. Now let's talk about the other things that we need to pay attention to. We need to talk about the comparison between Jimmy Butler, for example, and Paul George, right? Because Kawhi Leonard is not just looking at, okay, well, this team can sign me. You know, Miami has, they have nice weather and all of these different things. No, he's also looking at, okay, who's going to be my running mate in this particular, team that I'm going to be playing with. And that's important. Now, if we look at Jimmy Butler and we look at Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, Jimmy Butler this season, he averaged 21.5 points per game, 6.9 rebounds, and 7.1 assists per game. If we look at Paul George this regular season, he averaged 23.3 points per game, 6.3 rebounds per game, 6.6 rebounds per game, and 5.2 assists per game, right? Another thing to pay attention to is that Paul George, in my opinion, and I think by most people's opinion, is the overall better player than Jimmy Butler, right? Overall, he's a better player. So I think when Kawhi Leonard is going to be looking at these two guys, I think Kawhi Leonard will quickly be able to understand that, listen, these guys are both two-way players, but Paul George is a more talented player, and he's a better overall player. Now, obviously, Jimmy Butler is much more, is mentally tougher, right? He's a tough guy. You probably would want him, a type of guy like that on the Clippers, but I think ultimately we can both agree that Paul George is overall the better player. Now, another thing worth noting is this. The rosters, the Clippers have the deepest roster in the NBA. Although the Miami Heat have Bam Adebayo, they have Goran Dragic, they have Tyler Hero, they have Jimmy Butler, they have Trevor Ariza, and they have an amazing coach in Eric Spoelstra, who's a championship coach. The Clippers also do have a very deep roster, as you guys already know, and I don't have to go through all of that. In my opinion, I definitely think that the Clippers have the easier path to the finals. Some people say the easier path. Yes, because I think if Kawhi Leonard goes and signs with the Miami Heat and has to go through the New Jersey Nets, the Brooklyn Nets, I'm not sure that roster is good enough to be able to get them past the Nets. So I think Kawhi Leonard on the Clippers has a good chance to get out of the Western Conference, as we just saw. But for him to get past the Brooklyn Nets in the East, and the Brooklyn Nets are going to be tough, I just don't see it happening. So I think ultimately Kawhi Leonard decides to stay with the Clippers because he has a better team. If we're going to compare these two, I think the better option for Kawhi Leonard, if we're looking at the Clippers and the Heat, I think the Clippers are obviously going to be the better option. Now, I want to address the Dallas Mavericks rumors because some people will say, oh, Kawhi Leonard may possibly sign with the Dallas Mavericks. First of all, the Dallas Mavericks are in complete turmoil. Kristaps Porzingis doesn't want to be there. He doesn't get along with Luka Doncic. That's number one. Number two, Rick Carlisle just left the team. He said, I'm done coaching this team. I'm out of here. So he left the team and he ended up going to go coach the Indiana Pacers. So that's another bad sign. Mark Cuban is known to be a owner that likes to meddle and get into the affairs of the team, which is something that Kawhi Leonard may not be happy to be like. He may not like Mark Cuban as an owner overall, in my opinion. I think there's a stark difference between him and Steve Ballmer. Steve Ballmer kind of lets his guys, like the team president, Lawrence Frank, and these guys kind of handle the team. And Mark Cuban tends to be the Jerry Jones, pretty much, of the NBA. He likes to get very involved in that situation. So I don't think that's something, he would want to be a part of. Then you look at their new coach who just hired Jason Kidd. Jason Kidd is not a championship coach. He's not a proven coach. And I think we can all agree that Ty Lue is the better coach between Jason Kidd and these guys. I think Luka Doncic is a bit of a ball hog. I don't see how him and Kawhi Leonard's game will fit together. Luka Doncic just tends to check a lot of shots. So Kawhi Leonard going to go sign with the Dallas Mavericks. I think it's just a bunch of nonsense, and I just think people are searching for a story, so they got to put out something. So overall, in my honest opinion, if we're looking at the Miami Heat, the Dallas Mavericks, and the Clippers, I still think Kawhi Leonard resigns with the Clippers because that's just the better option. And also given the fact he's at home, he's around his family, he just bought a place out there. So right now, I just think it's just a bunch of stories. I think people are searching, and I don't think Kawhi Leonard leaves the Clippers as of yet. Given the facts that I have, I don't think those two teams have a compelling enough story or a package for Kawhi Leonard to say, you know what, I'm leaving the Clippers to go sign with you. I just don't see that happening. So those are my thoughts and opinions on this. So what I want to know from you guys is, do you think the Miami Heat can possibly steal Kawhi Leonard, or do you think, no way, Jose, that's not going to happen? So whatever you guys think, please leave your thoughts and comments in the comment section below. Again, if you enjoyed the video, be sure to make sure you go ahead and hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and hit the notification bell to be notified whenever we drop our content. Once again, it's just Charles here from Dreamers Pro. Wishing you guys an amazing day and catch you guys on the next episode.